He saved my life, you know. 30 years ago, I was knifed in a bazaar in Calcutta. He carried me in the hospital on his back.
Who stabbed you?
He did.
You know what they do in that particular department anyway. Are you still a cop? No! No! Swear on your mother's grave you're still not a cop?
Can I not walk up there quick?
Oh, look, David, a boot.
A boot.
Don't hit George, David.
I wasn't gonna hit George.
Daffodils.
They're your favorite flower.
How did you get so many?
I called everywhere in 5 states. I told them it was the only way to get my wife to marry me.
You don't even know me.
I have the rest of my life to find out.
Love, true love.
I always feel like there should be a ding when they smile in that clip.
You're getting a little like kind of
Exactly.
shine on his tooth or something.
Unlike me, because I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.
So we have almost quite literally a handful.
Yes,
like we can
have.
count on one hand how many films we have to talk
So
about
watch
today.
out, because we're going to be babbling.
We're going to get deep,
More than
deep inside Melissa
Yes.
McCarthy's
Don't say that.
body of work today.
Okay.
And should we begin and
Sure.
just delve deeply into the treasures that lie within?
Since you created the frightening illusion, you may start.
Doug Henning
stuck in my
created
head.
some frightening illusions
That's
in
true,
his
too.
day, too. So we have the newest film, the newest comedy from Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone, who I believe is her husband. It's the writer-director team there. Detailing what happens to a woman whose life falls apart in middle age and goes back to college, the college that fortunately or unfortunately her daughter also attends, and this woman may or may not become the life of the party.
Begins, so you still have time to add to the fun of watching the movie.
So we play the European version of that trailer there.
So you can kind of,
The
it's not subtitled, but.
It's the English dub version of that. Not a fan of Melissa McCarthy. She may be a wonderful person.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the body of work.
I certainly didn't start out as a fan.
I never find her movies funny. I find her characterizations very annoying and grating. And I was dreading. I almost didn't go see this one. I almost didn't have time for this one this week. But I went because MoviePass. And of course, expectations were very low. And I found this one okay. For me, this was one of her better movies in terms of it didn't make me angry or roll my eyes. There were moments where I was like, ugh.
That's going to be on the box, too, as well. It didn't make me angry.
Didn't make me angry because you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Right.
So the basic premise is Melissa McCarthy's leaving her. She and her husband drop their daughter off for the beginning of her senior year in college. And at that moment, the husband says, "I'm leaving you." So Melissa McCarthy's world is turned upside down, and she decides to go back to school, much like Rodney Dangerfield did in A Far Superior
What
film.
a surprise.
And basically, it's the whole dynamic of, hey, great, my mom is in school with me. I hesitate to say that I liked this movie. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't find it funny.
Okay,
There
right.
were a couple of moments where I kind of smirked or went, but that was about it. It wasn't as gross and gruesome as these films tend to be. It wasn't as stupid as these films tend to be. It was nice to see a film where the central character is a good person and doing good things, and that goodness of this person spreads to other people and makes other people happy. It was relatively uplifting and positive in many ways. It was kind of interesting. I was ready for her to be sort of totally shunned and mocked by all the sorority sisters, and it was the total opposite. She has interactions with these mean girls, and it was nice to see a film, rare comedy, where the one good person in the film is not just, crapped on by everybody. There are these two mean girls who are mean to her, and her whole thing is she just kind of laughs at them, and it's like, why are you? What are you doing? Which is at this point in my life, if anybody ever did that to me, I would just laugh at them. I'm like, really? This is what you're choosing to spend your time with? Go, feel free. So it was, pleasant enough. My biggest takeaway from this film was there was a trailer in front of, we were talking off air. It's interesting to see, go to a movie and see all of the trailers that are designed to try to appeal to the people who have just paid to see a certain film.
Right.
So for an action movie, you're going to see action-y trailers and sci-fi stuff. For female-focused films, you're going to see all these lady-type movies. And generally, I feel like women should demand better films aimed at their gender because I think most of them are pretty terrible and pretty, in my mind, demeaning. But we'll talk about Book Club when it comes out.
Nice.
There was a trailer for a new Melissa McCarthy film that's a drama. I don't know if you got this one.
No.
I don't recall the name of it. Based on a true story, she's a failing author who finds a letter from Fanny Bryce tucked into some old book she bought somewhere. She tries to sell it. The person says, this isn't that interesting. So she goes and she adds an extra PS to this letter, and basically she becomes a forger of literary letters from people and starts, making money and all this other stuff.
But it's a drama.
But it's a drama. It's almost
Interesting.
reminded me of Shattered Glass, somebody who has to keep the lie alive to keep something going. And it's got her and Richard E. Grant and some other recognizable people, and it looks good.
Okay.
Now, for me, the whole thing with Melissa McCarthy is there was a movie called Identity Thief, which
Yes.
I also thought was not good.
Right.
But there's one little moment in that where she gets
Exactly.
dramatic.
Right.
And I believe it's a pull the rug out from under the other character. It's fake drama. But in the moment that she's dramatic, I'm like, wow, that
Right. She
really
can
worked.
act, yeah.
I'd like to see her do more of this. So here's a film where we're actually going to see that.
Good.
So I'm actually, the biggest takeaway for me from Life of the Party is that I want to see this other movie.
Okay.
instead. So
Fair enough.
How was yours?
I never started. My understanding with Melissa McCarthy is that she started on television, I believe.
Gilmore Girls?
I'm not sure, but had a big following in that. So her early film career, you're right. I wasn't crazy about her. Like with Identity Thief, I didn't. That for me was what Melissa McCarthy was. This obnoxious, annoying character. And the tales were like that, angry tales. Although I was similarly struck by that exact moment. I know the one you're talking about was that was like, wow, this woman can act. Why don't we see more of that? Be great if we saw that. I went into this not expecting a whole lot, and that's what I got. I basically got what I expected. I've learned to like her ever since, and there was something before Spy. But Spy was one where she's an assistant to Jason Statham, I think, who is a super tough espionage thriller guy. And he's kind of a bumbler. I really enjoyed Spy. And that's when I started turning around. And then when she did her bits on Saturday Night Live, I think I've become a fan of hers. So I'll go see it just because she's in it. I usually don't have high expectations, and I think that helped me, for want of a better term, enjoy this. I expected this to be a little bit more clever. Clearly the comparisons to Back to School and Rodney Dangerfield's, I think you have to compare it to that. And while that wasn't, any great work of art, it was certainly a lot funnier, and I was expecting more either funny moments or just clever moments. And so ultimately, this might not to discourage anybody from going out to the Latches or any place else they might want to see it. But, this might be more of a fun one on home video, I would think.
I did enjoy the supporting cast in this.
Yeah.
I'm, of course, blanking on most of their names now that they're not in front of me. But Jillian Jacobs, who people know from Community, the TV series,
Right.
plays a woman who is in a coma for 8 years. and she was just a weird character.
Yeah.
And the roommate character, Melissa McCarthy's roommate, is a little weird. Not terribly funny, but at least quirky and amusing enough.
Right.
So there were little things throughout that kept me interested.
That'll keep you going. Right.
It's hard to say, again, I can't say that I really liked this that much, but I've seen a lot of comedies that I'm like angry and very impatient with
Right.
by the time they're done, and this wasn't that. And again, I think part of it is that comedies tend to be pretty well shot, and they flow well, and they're pretty colors and decent music and all that. So
That's always good.
Now, I went to see this at a matinee, pretty sparsely attended. It was 11
Yeah.
a.m. on a Sunday, on Mother's Day. Actually, a really good movie for Mother's Day, funny enough. This would not be the whole thing about this is mother-daughter bonding.
Right.
And it is nice to see a movie where the daughter loves the mother, and it's not just
Exactly,
butting
yeah.
heads, and it's not nastiness or anything like that. The nastiness is all reserved for the soon-to-be ex-husband in the film, whose name is not in my head right now, but he was in Upright Citizens Brigade, and he's on Veep, and he's pretty great too.
Okay.
But overall, a pretty decent film for mothers and daughters to see, I think.
Right. If you were to happen to wait to see it on home video, one woman would have a difficult time seeing it because it's a little hard to get into the house. It's not really her house. It's where she grew up. But Dad has died, and she takes her couple kids to go, and you got to clean everything up and get things ready for the sale, the estate sale. Unfortunately, there's a little bit more than everybody else thinks is inside that house when 4 burglars try to find $4 million hidden away someplace. The woman is stuck outside, and she has to spend her time breaking in.
Freshman Center now. Enjoy a delicious snack and ice-cold Coca-Cola.
So they'd been pushing this for quite a while. It kind of came out, for me, it came out of nowhere a couple months ago. And I was really intrigued. I thought it looked like loads of fun. Particularly what I was looking forward to, and is this my fault? Probably so. But I was thinking, oh, she has to break into her own house knowing all of the little tricks of the security system. Well, this is her dad's house. She doesn't, in fact, when she first gets in there, she doesn't know anything about it. So that really didn't come into play. None of the kind of outsmarting the technology really didn't come into play, with one exception where she goes and she smashes all the lights outside. This is really about, it's like the reverse home invasion, where, and you can see these 4 guys, well, 3 of them actually, because one of them kind of gets, no spoiler alert, but kind of gets taken out of the action, right, for a while. But you've got, the main guy is the super smart, almost villain with a heart of gold, I kind of thought, because he seemed sort of nice, and he said, oh, we're not going to hurt you or anything, and I believed him. Of course, that's why I'd be killed in a movie like this. Then there's just the insane, crazy killer, and the blonde-haired kid is kind of in the middle. And so the 3 of them are the ones who take her young son and young daughter and stick them in a room, and she has to try to break into this house because there's $4 million there. A strange subplot with Dad, because Dad's apparently associated with the mafia or something evil, and he's confiscated, and there's $4 million in the house. Somehow he got that. So I was expecting cleverness, and this was just kind of basically she fights against them, finds some way within the narrative to get a one-on-one where she fights them, and there's so much reference. I don't know if they did this intentionally for Mother's Day. They're not advertising this as a, hey, go out and for Mother's Day and watch her beat people up. But there's so much of the, oh, you picked the wrong house, you picked the wrong mother, and I'm going to protect my cubs. There are even line references like that, that I thought this was pretty mundane. And, I can't even think, again, my criteria, as I'd said with Life at the Party, I tend to expect less when we're at home. It's certainly not as hard to see it. There's maybe not that much time investment in it, but I don't even know that I can recommend this at home because I didn't think there was much that good.
This, it sounds like more of an insult than it is. This felt to me like a Lifetime movie, partly because it was very clear to my eye that this was cut down to get a PG-13 from an R rating. Probably a little violence in there because one of the guys is a psycho. Yeah. Everybody calls me psycho. The problem was that she touched his stuff. Anyway, Francis Sawyer, he is a very brutal, nasty guy, and when he does some of these things, it always cuts away, which I can kind of understand, but then later you can see lines have been looped and the lips don't match because they're removing F words and profanity and really nasty dialogue, and I'm like, oh, okay. And at one point, these 3 hardened criminals are in a tense situation and angry inside a house where nobody else is around, and one of the guys says "frickin'."
Yeah, exactly.
And they actually, I have to believe, stood out for me. Maybe it was an alternate take for TV, but he said "frickin'." Yeah. And I'm like, you just took me out of this movie. Not swearing to me is more natural than any adult.
And you can say it once
frickin'.
and still get the PG.
You know who says frickin'? A kid who's next to their parents says frickin'. Anyway, so that was a little distracting and a little weird. The Lifetime movie thing comes from not because it's female-centric, maybe to a degree, but more that it wasn't very exceptional in any way. Like the tension, like this was the one I was looking forward to this weekend. The tension wasn't that great or powerful. The situations, like how she outsmarted the bad guys, wasn't so clever that you're like, yeah. Like I was expecting one of these typical revenge vigilante kind of movie where somebody is wronged in kind of a scary way, and then they come back and they just take the bad guys apart. And part of me at the beginning was like, oh, there's only 4 bad guys. This isn't going to be fun. We're only going to get to see this mother of 2 kill 5 guys. So I just thought it was kind of dull. It was okay, but I think Bad Samaritan is a better one if you're looking for somebody, a survival against crazy people. The tension works far better in that one than in this. This just, it was kind of uninteresting and bland. So again, you talk about the home screen. This wasn't, it's going through my mind. I was like, this isn't theatrical. There's nothing
Well,
on such a
it
large
felt so
scale
much
to
like a
me.
paint by numbers, or this happens, this happens, this happens. She finally gets through, and it looks like she's going to survive. And then, then the real estate agent shows up. Then her husband shows up. Really? That's what it takes to keep the interest going? I don't think so.
A very thankless role for Christina Miller from the Drew Carey
Yes,
show.
exactly,
I'm
really.
like, ooh, she's in one scene, and she's not going to be in a second scene. Not to give anything away.
Right, no spoilers.
So, sort of an inverse panic room. Instead of bad guys trying to break into where the mother and child are, she has to break in. Anyway, I didn't think it was that great. At best, a matinee, probably much better. This is the kind of thing you're going to watch on TNT in about 5 years on cable and go like, I haven't seen that. That's all that we saw in actually, that's not all that I saw in theaters this weekend, but there's no time, or there's a code of silence around what I saw in the theater this weekend. So we thank our friends at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, Vermont, for sponsoring our program. And we now move on to that which you can watch in the comfort of your own home or device, platform, service, or format of your choice. However you get movies
on video
into your eyes legally. That's not what we're talking about. And this is a film. Can I introduce this one?
You must. I'm not going to say anything about it.
I just had a moment thinking about this movie, which I didn't see in the theater.
You can clean up during the...
I didn't. Yeah, this was a film that I didn't have time to see in the theater because I unfortunately had time to see the first one. We have the second in a who knows how many. It's got to be a trilogy, right? Because you can't take it seriously unless it's 3 movies. So probably the second.
Third. This is the third.
This was the third one?
Yeah.
Oh, did I miss 2 of these?
You did.
Oh, merciful heavens. Well, speaking of book club, we have a film about a woman in an abusive relationship that is apparently very exciting to her, and this time she is 50 Shades Freed.
Peaceful stroll outdoors, doing little simple chores.
Okay, sorry, I did a little modification.
A little
there,
editorial.
Yeah.
Editorial.
And it's not really fair because I didn't see this either. I admit it.
Oh, well, geez.
Again, they're targeting a very specific audience.
We're frauds.
Which is fine. And it looks like they're beautifully shot, really well shot and everything like that, but just doesn't appeal to me, and so I can't talk about, necessarily what 50 Shades Freed good or bad.
So we presented that as information.
Exactly.
We may cast sturgeon upon these films, but we have not seen them. I got no beef if people like anything. If people like these things, that's great, and they do. They do well. They made 3 of them. And they sold a whole bunch of books, and that's great. I'll be watching Cannonball too. Up next, speaking of martial arts,
since as we were, Batman doesn't have enough to do hanging around Gotham City. He has to find himself a way to get back in time to fight some jiu-jitsu wielding or using bad guys because he's going to become not just the Dark Knight, but Batman Ninja. Really hot.
Every cup tastes good as fresh perked.
Because it is fresh perk.
Oh, I like it better.
Like, if you don't get enough of the Dark Knight, you can find the anime. I've never been crazy about any of the animated style things, even going back to like the early Teen Titans kinds of stuff. But they were even a different style of animation than these were.
I grew up with Hanna-Barbera,
right,
which a lot of folks look down upon and poo-poo, but that was the style of animation that I first came to know. And, Warner Brothers and Disney and all that. So the dark, heavy lines and that level of motion and animation is what was the foundation for my understanding of what a cartoon should or could be. So as we started getting things, and I watched Battle of the Planets as a kid, and I loved that, Gatchaman. But as we went on and into the 80s, there's a point to this. As we went on to the 80s and you had Voltron and more Japanese animated stuff, I really didn't like the style. It looked cheap to me, and it all kind of looked the same, which you could say of all the things I mentioned as things I do like. But I never got into anime that much, and the ones I've watched have been good because the writing is usually way beyond anything else that you'd imagine. So the Studio Ghibli or Ghibli stuff that I've seen has been good, and Akira and Ghost in the Shell and all that stuff has been good.
Well, even the Pokemons are similar in style.
I've never seen any of that, but the style bugs me so much it's hard to get over that. So there was recently a Godzilla anime that you can find on Amazon Prime and Netflix and everything, and I'd heard it was good, and I like Godzilla. And with the thing with animation is you can do anything. You can do that with
Right.
CGI too, but anything that your imagination can conjure up, you can realize that way. So that has the potential for telling amazing stories. But I popped the Godzilla thing in, and I'm like, I just don't like the way this looks. So I knew about this Batman Ninja, and we're going to. Speaking of spoilers, neither of us saw this. I saw the ad for this just now, and I'd heard about it. But again, the style is just so not what I enjoy.
Right.
It's hard for me to get over that, which is a very long way of eating up the preponderance of time we have to say we
only
didn't
have
watch this.
one more.
We have one more film.
He gets to talk about it.
But I did see it.
Because he gets it free.
Because I get it free?
No, well,
I mean, I get it free. So, out now from the MVD Rewind collection. That's MVD Visual, the company. They put out the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes disc we reviewed. They put out some things we're going to talk about next week in the coming weeks. They've done a lot of these films that were video store classics or HBO staples in the old days, and they put them in these cool slip cases that look like old video covers, and the design looks like the old media home entertainment covers. And the slip cases have like, it looks like a slightly damaged box with video store stickers on it. And if you take the disc out on the inside is, a proper cover. So if you don't like the retro look, you can get, the proper look. Anyway, this film, co-written by and co-starring John Cryer of Two and a Half Men and Pretty in Pink and Morgan Stewart's Coming Home and Hiding Out and No Small Affair and all those other films, about childhood friends in the 60s who are now in their 20s, come back together again to help out or find a friend who's gone missing in a film entitled Went to Coney Island on a Mission from God, Back by Five.
Wide open style that really lets you have it. Schmidt, Big Mouth.
Hi.
Oh, and we're back.
So the whole time we're like, why have I never heard of this movie?
Right, yeah. Look at all these people. Holy cow.
Exactly. If you saw the trailer, it's in there. So it's John Cryer and another actor whose name, Rick Steer, probably, if that's correct on here, who you wouldn't recognize. But then as basically these two guys get back together, you see them as kids and the motley crew who came together and bonded and grew up together. So you get them in various stages of their life, sort of briefly at the beginning of the film. And then it gets to the point where they've lost touch with one of their friends and they heard he might be homeless, nobody can find him, and he's probably at Coney Island. So these two old friends who've grown up apart, different, get back together to try to find their friend. So it's very interesting. It's shot, in the winterish time, spring or fall, at Coney Island, so there's hardly anybody there, and as they say in the trailer, the wind is whipping through the cyclone and all that sort of thing. And these various quirky people they meet trying to find this guy. So you have Frank Whaley as a guy who runs a skee ball arcade. You have Dominic Chiesi, I think his name is. He played Uncle June on Sopranos. You have Ione Skye. There might be a couple more people in there that I can't remember right now. And it's some flashbacks throughout, but them just trying to see where they are in their lives at this point. Things that anybody who's had a friend long enough, there are always things about your friends that bug you a little bit, and you don't see them for a while, and it's like, hey, how are you? And sooner or later, those little things that bug you come back again.
Right, exactly.
And maybe
I can take 2 days of him.
Maybe that little stone in your shoe becomes a boulder because you've had to deal with it for so long. So there's a lot of that dynamic going on in the film. It's very competently shot, very competently acted. A couple of the performances from the lesser-known people are a little bit more actory, shall we say. But overall, I found it pretty entertaining. I was really surprised the level of music that was in this film. I can't remember off the top of my head, but incredibly recognizable original recordings of like 60s, 70s. I think this is set in the 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s songs. And I'm like, how did they afford these?
Right, yeah.
Because music rights are the killer in the entertainment.
Low-budget film.
That's what keeps things off video. That's what keeps sound-alikes, all this other stuff. But they had these really huge songs that somehow made it to video, which blew my mind. This was, I believe, released around 1998. I believe this is like a 20th anniversary release of the film. I had never heard of it. I think if it had a release, it must have been like a New York, LA thing. It probably was straight to video at a point where I wasn't frequenting the video store too much, and I wouldn't have seen this, or frankly, I wouldn't have grabbed something I hadn't heard of off the new release wall. So the disc has got a bunch of extras. It has a vintage making of. It has a new introduction by John Cryer and the film's co-writer and director, and a couple of other things. Not a huge amount. And I believe it has a commentary. I'm pretty sure it has a commentary. And this was just a neat little curio to me. Like if you like John Cryer, who's now arguably as famous as he ever was because he was or has been on 2.5 Men for like 2 decades or however. I mean, he probably got 2.5 Men as soon as this movie stopped, and then he stopped doing it and did the extras in this. But at any rate, this is out now, and boy, the title. I had to sort of just rack my brain to remember the whole thing. Went to Coney Island on a mission from God, be back by 5. I thought it was pretty good. So that's all we have to talk about. And I don't really feel like wasting anybody's time with blabbing for a half hour just so we can hit that 60-minute mark on the show this week.
Sorry, I have nothing to discuss.
I legally cannot
Deadpool
discuss.
2 next week.
I will say. So I don't know if I've talked about it on the show or not before. Filmmaker Al Manelli from the Lancaster.
Sal.
Do you? From Manila. The filmmaker from Lancaster, PA, did a documentary about the Mahoning Drive-In, where I work on the weekends. And it was basically a documentary about how these people came together to turn a failing drive-in into this unique 35mm only, all old movies drive-in that has really gained a following over the last 3 or 4 years. And that film has been playing festivals around the country. I've been going to some of the screenings to participate in the Q&As and to see myself on a movie screen.
And signing autographs and stuff. You make $50 a
Not
pop,
yet.
right?
I charge a crisp $5 is all I ask, and a firm hand. A Laurel and Hardy handshake are all I ask for. Biggest news so far. First of all, folks who can get your ass to Mars, after Mars, if you can get your butt to the Mahoning Drive-In in Laheyton, Pennsylvania, it is playing there this weekend.
But there's also another venue.
So this weekend at the Drive-In, which is the title of the film, At the Drive-In, look it up online if you want to have it come to your town. At the Drive-In is playing at the Drive-In. So most weekends down there, we dress up the snack bar and people are in costume and do all kinds of things to turn the snack bar into what it's like in the movie that's on the screen. This weekend, we guarantee the most immersive experience we will ever do there. The snack bar at our drive-in will look just like the one in that movie. There'll be a guy who looks just like me working the cash register. It's going to be amazing. So we're all going to be there and do that, and that's going to be fun. They're running the Co-Features American movie from a few years ago.
But we screen all over the nation, and like even out in California. How can people there possibly see it?
Funny you should bring that up. This is a huge kick to all of us who are involved with this. The At the Drive-In documentary in June, I believe, is going to be playing at the Mann's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, California.
That's no bad shakes.
This mug is going to be on that movie screen in Hollywood, which is astounding. And I'm so happy for Al because he's a guy who wants to make movies, and his film is going to be shown in the best place for people to be seeing it, Hollywood, California, as part of a film festival out there. So he's going to be out there with the film. I probably won't be, but I don't know if anybody else from the cast, it's funny to call my friends the cast, but the cast of the film may be going out there. And it may be coming to other screens around you. If you look it up on Facebook, At the Drive-In Documentary, maybe you can request it playing in your town. Anyway, it's a really cool thing for my friends and I.
I mentioned the title of the film that I was going to produce that would screen exclusively at drive-ins and make absolutely no money. It's closed for season.
Yeah.
So.
That's a popular title around October.
Yes,
across
exactly
the
right.
nation.
You see it everywhere. Or not.
So until next week when we discuss Deadpool 2 and Book Club.
And lots of stuff on video.
And a stack of Arrow discs, if I can make them through them. I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.